I wanted to start off just by giving a lay of the land of the topics that we intend to address today. First of all, we'll talk about why connection, meaning, and purpose are really important for your well-being. I'll do a brief summary of research evidence that shows that helping others not only helps your health, but also your happiness and life satisfaction. And then Mary is going to suggest some practical strategies for incorporating altruism, kindness, and doing good into your daily life. We'll have some opportunities to get your creative juices flowing and to come up with ideas. We'll present some opportunities that you might not be aware of in this challenging time across the board, but also in terms of finding ways to volunteer and get involved during COVID-19. And then we'll have an opportunity to chat in some ideas around how to bring these concepts into your daily life. So that's what we intend to cover today. So this first section addresses why and how does helping others help your own well-being? This slide has a lot going on, and in the center, these kind of four multicolored petals represent your domains of your own personal individual well-being. So these are the who's well domains, physical well-being, financial well-being, as well as mental and emotional well-being. So these are very important areas of well-being. Additionally important are relationships beyond the self, or we might say transcendence. And there are two main varieties of transcendence as we look at the literature. And it need not be, connecting to a religious figure or a belief system. This spiritual well-being, as I'm calling it here, can involve deepening a sense of meaning and purpose in your life, or connecting to secular forms of inspiration, such as nature or art or music. And this type of connection with something or someone greater than ourselves can be referred to as vertical transcendence, which is indicated by the arrow here pointing upwards. The second main variety of transcendence is termed horizontal transcendence. So it's represented by these concentric sort of rings, or they kind of look like ripples on water. So we can transcend beyond our own individual self by connecting with others, whether it's family members, friends, community groups, or through activities such as volunteering. So I thought I would start with this slide just to give us an idea of how these concepts of social well-being and spiritual well-being relate to the more traditional domains of well-being that we cultivate through our Who's Well programming. So I wanted to share some really compelling data here. So this is from a Kaiser Family Foundation and the Economist survey done back in 2018. And the two charts here are highlighting the difference, first of all, in mental and physical health, and then also on life satisfaction, the differences between people who report loneliness or social isolation and people who do not report loneliness or social isolation. So it's quite a marked difference here. So we'll look at the leftmost graph first. So relating to mental and physical health. So the percentage of survey respondents who said that they've been told by a medical professional that they have a mental health condition. That's around 15% for people who do not report loneliness or social isolation. That's the orange bar. And it's about 3 times as much for those who report loneliness or social isolation. So quite a difference between those two as it relates to mental health. And then in terms of physical health, the lower part of that left-hand graph, so again, there's about a 3-fold difference here percentage-wise in rates of disability or chronic disease between those who report loneliness and those who do not. So that's looking at mental and physical health. We can also look at life satisfaction, or more accurately, life dissatisfaction in the context of this survey. So same groups, orange represents people who do not report loneliness or social isolation, blue represents people who do. And you can see here the marked differences in 4 categories of life dissatisfaction between these 2 groups. And that ranges all the way from family life to current housing situation, current employment situation, and financial situation. So again, the takeaway message with the right-hand graph is people who report loneliness have much, much higher reported rates of dissatisfaction across several domains of life. So I'd like to back up a bit and reconnect with that graphic I showed a couple of slides ago around this spiritual well-being or meaning and purpose, and just sort of talk about why is that important. So I have 3 quotes here just to kind of speak to why meaning and purpose are important. The first one you see here is by Stephen Taylor. And interestingly enough, he wrote this book, The Psychology of Pandemics, before COVID. So this is a quote from him. The need for purpose is one of the defining characteristics of human beings. We crave purpose and suffer serious psychological differences when we don't have purpose. So it's a fundamental component of a fulfilling life. The second quote is from a publication that I worked on about 10 years ago, and it speaks to transcendence. And as I mentioned a couple slides ago, that really means allegiance to something greater than oneself. It doesn't have to be towards a particular power, and transcendence is closely related to developing meaning and purpose, since meaning and purpose usually arise out of greater connection to something greater than our individual selves. Then the third quote is more recent, from a study in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. And as the survey data in the last slide showed, those with meaning in life and connection in life are happier and healthier than those without it. So there's this interesting pattern of when you find more meaning, you become more connected. And contrary to that, if there's a lower sense of meaning and purpose in life, there can be higher rates of stress, which I'm sure we can all identify with these days. It's just some quotes to get, get us thinking about why would I want to try to cultivate more meaning and purpose in my life. So here's another study that I'd like to briefly present. And this was reported on in UVA Today. It was done, I believe, at the McIntyre School. I can't see my slide notes in this view, but I believe it was a couple years ago. A professor from the McIntyre School conducted this study. And it relates to our primary source of abundance, or what we perceive to be our primary source of abundance in our lives. And So this study, they looked at kind of two groups. In the first group was people who mentioned that their primary source of abundance was kind of material things and physical resources like money. And interestingly enough, that group felt less abundant overall. And they also reported sort of making charitable donations less frequently. And in contrast, the group who said that relationships or spirituality, so that's another way of saying, social connection or meaning and purpose, or the vertical transcendence and the horizontal transcendence, people in that group reported feeling more abundant overall. And another benefit that they experienced was more positive emotional resources like compassion, love, being able to see the positive in all situations. I just realized I was going to do a poll and I forgot to do that. So let's go ahead and go back and do that. So this just a way to sort of get us connected here. So this question, I'd like for you to think about the people in your life, like family, friends, and neighbors. And just on a scale of 1 to 10, how connected do you feel? So 1 is I feel alone most of the time, and 10 is I have all the support that I need. Give it another few moments here for us to consider this question. These are anonymous questions. All of the poll questions will be anonymous. Okay, it looks like we've got about 3/4 of folks have responded. So let's see here. So this is great to see that most people are at about an 8 on the scale of 1 to 10. And you may recall that this was a question on the health assessment, if you did that in the Who's Well portal. And the data on that health assessment showed that UVA employees and spouses averaged about a 7.5 out of 10 on this question. So we're about on par with the employee population at large. Great, thanks for responding to that poll. And I have one more poll here, which I forgot to do. So another question, just briefly, I'd like to reflect for a moment on the statement, my life has meaning and purpose. How much do you agree with that? Again, this is anonymous. Great, and looks like most people have had a chance to respond. So again, positive news here. Most people agree with that statement, and just a couple people behind that are strongly agree. So that is great to hear that you feel that on the whole, your life has meaning and purpose. So there's always room for growth above. So hopefully we'll touch on some strategies that can help you improve your sense of meaning and purpose even more. Get on track here. So this is another poll question, the last poll question. And I'm going to ask, this is going to be a series of 5 questions actually. And so a group of volunteers were asked to agree with a set of statements around their perceptions of volunteering. And for each one, I'm going to ask you to guess what the percentages are who agreed with various statements. So last poll question, here we go. Okay, looks like some folks are starting to respond. You can go through all 5. We'll give it maybe another 20 seconds or so. Okay, I think we have a majority. So I'll just put up how people responded, and I'll leave that up as I go through what the so-called correct answers are. I think we did pretty well. So 96% of volunteers said that it makes them happier. Oops, I think I made a trick question there because I didn't give the correct response as an option for the first one. Sorry about that. Second one, enriches my sense of purpose in life. So 92%, most people got that one right. Volunteering improves emotional health. So it's actually a little bit lower than the others. Most people said 87%. It's actually around 77. And then improve my sense of well-being. Looks like most people got that one right on target. And recovery from loss and disappointment, that one also is a little bit lower. So that I just mainly had that in for fun to keep us engaged. The actual stats are not so important, and we certainly don't want to extrapolate any unintended messages from these data. So I'll just leave it at that, and then move on to our next slide. So here's some another survey. This was of almost 5,000 American adults, and it actually showed that 41% of people in that survey group volunteered, and for quite a bit, for an average of 100 hours a year. And in that survey, volunteers reported that by volunteering, it helped increase their friendships, the strength of their friendships, their social networks, and this kind of agency or self-efficacy around the sense of control over chronic conditions. Conversely, the respondents in that survey said that volunteering helped reduce trouble sleeping and anxiety, as well as sense of helplessness and sense of hopelessness. So let's get to some key takeaway points around the health benefits of volunteering. It can improve health and psychological well-being. And interestingly, it's shown to be a causal relationship. So it's not just that there's an association between, psychological well-being and volunteering. There's a directionality in that relationship, in that data on the whole show that volunteering leads to enhanced psychological well-being. So it's not necessarily that people already kind of have high mental and emotional well-being, and then they happen to volunteer as well. There's kind of a directionality in this relationship that's implied. Now, in terms of how to kind of maximize the effect of your volunteering and its impact on our health and well-being, it's shown that both consistency and diversity of volunteering are statistically significantly related to health and well-being. So as we think about ways that we want to get involved, we can think about doing so on a regular basis and also getting involved in a range of altruistic activities. And as we might expect, volunteering in a group has a stronger effect than doing so alone. And the elderly and those who are, kind of report more loneliness, experience even more benefits from volunteering. So particularly important for those groups to get involved. So this was an interesting commentary that Stephen Post did in the American Journal of Health Promotion, where he looked at, is there kind of a dose-response relationship to the health benefits of volunteering? And could there be kind of a prescribing level, in air quotes, of the amount of volunteering that is needed to produce health benefits? And what he found in this commentary piece is based on a summary of the research evidence, is that doing more than 2 hours a week doesn't necessarily increase health benefits. So we don't need to go, bonkers with our volunteering and do, 10 hours a week or something like that. So, and then just wanted to offer an important caveat is that if you're a healthcare professional or someone else in the helping professions, particularly during this time of COVID, which has been so draining for our frontline team members and first responders, this threshold might be significantly lower. We also need to be aware of the potential for burnout. So this is not anything written in stone, this 2 hours a week. It's just kind of a general guideline for those who are, not necessarily experiencing symptoms or precursors of burnout. Okay, and then last slide in this group. I'm not going to go over all the details in these tiny little graphs, but I just wanted to include this slide to show that it's not just kind of a loosey-goosey effect that we're talking about with volunteering in health. There's kind of some hard data based on brain imaging that really sheds a light on how volunteering and helping others can help your own well-being. And the mechanism for that is the so-called eudaimonic effect, and which relates to feeling good about yourself and having meaning and purpose in life. And volunteering leads to both that kind of well-being effect as well as what's called the hedonic well-being, which is just feeling good in general rather than feeling good about oneself. And based on these neurophysiological data, there's some suggestion that the way that this eudaimonic effect is produced is through the concept of mattering, or the perception that we're a significant part of the world around us, and that we can, have an effect through our actions to benefit others. And then there's also this related to the hedonic well-being. Interesting to, in these brain scans here, these fMRI images, there's kind of a part of the brain that lights up, when we're engaged in giving or altruistic behavior. And it's part of our reward center of our brain. So anyhow, just some interesting, neurophysiological data here to support what I've been talking about. So let's shift gears here, and Mary is going to present this next section on how to incorporate altruism and kindness into your daily life.
Thanks, Matt. And such great research and information to give the background and really foundation for understanding why it's so important to make sure that this is present in your life. So many great benefits. So thank you for sharing that. So we're going to talk a little bit more. This is just a short video that kind of helps us understand why, again, like on this deep level, that kindness and altruism and giving to others has such a great impact.
Sometimes it's easy to feel like the world's getting harder. But if we look closer, on the news, on the web, on the street, we're anything but unkind. Every day, we hear new stories of people trying to make the world a better place. And together, we can make the world that little bit kinder for all of us. It all starts with just one person, you. The thing about kindness is that it's just about the only thing in the world that doubles when you share it. And it's a fact, backed by science. Studies have shown that if you perform just one random act of kindness a day, you'll not only reduce your stress, anxiety, and depression, but your body is flooded with the same hormones that make you and the person you've helped calmer, healthier, and happier. Serotonin, which heals your wounds, helps you relax and makes you feel good. Endorphins, which reduce pain. And oxytocin, which reduces blood pressure and makes you feel more loving and loved. You'll both be more energized, feel less aches and pains, more confident, and could even live longer. And if other people see you helping someone else, they'll be filled with those same feel-good hormones, meaning they're significantly more likely to pay it forward. Like taking that extra moment to hold the elevator for someone, spotting a coffee for a stranger who's just a few cents short, giving your neighbor a hand with their groceries, even just smiling and meaning it. It doesn't take much, but it can make a huge difference for everyone. Those people you've helped will help other people, and those other people will help even more people. And those random acts of kindness can start a chain reaction that can spread across an entire community, a city, a country, and with enough of us, the world. Now, isn't that the world we all want? And it all starts with one.
So again, as you can see, what's great about it is not only helping ourselves, it helps somebody else, and if somebody's just even witnessing with kindness, it has that impact. And now as we're in this state of trying to kind of stop the spread of everything, this is something we actually would love to be spreading more of right now, right? Is the kindness and altruism, needing it more now than ever in terms of what's going on in the world. So love that the science matches up with kind of doing the right thing, and that we saw it from the brain, we saw it from all sorts of different surveys and studies. So, and so looking at different ways that we can kind of integrate it into our daily life. One way that's completely within our control is an altruistic mindset. The quote from him, and he has a book on altruism, and altruism is a benevolent state of mind. To be altruistic is to be concerned about the fate of all those around us and to wish them well. This should be done together with the determination to act for their benefit. Valuing others is the main state of mind that leads to altruism. So we know in terms of mindset, the power that choosing our mindset has, right? In terms of determining what we kind of notice in our lives and how we feel. And that is something that is 100% within our control, and that we are the only ones who get to choose our mindset. So thinking about kind of starting the day with an altruistic mindset of just, we could do some loving kindness meditation. We could just kind of think about others and wishing them well. And coming from that space of just kind of kindness towards others and thinking about how that might impact your day as you go about it and what you might notice differently, how you might act a little bit differently. And many of you maybe already are doing this and can see the benefits of that, right? So would love to kind of hear from people. The kind of related to this is that can kind of put us in this space is understanding that we have a negativity bias in our brain, right? We are always scanning for negative. And so because we're in the midst of a pandemic, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of things for our brains to be preoccupied with, right? So we also want to recognize kind of with good things, they kind of come and then they go. So we talk about how negativity is like Velcro and how positively it's like Teflon. It's like, oh, that's nice. And so we want to make sure we're teaching our brains how to do what we naturally do for negative for positive, and especially in this time when there's so much negative drawing our attention, right? So there's a simple gratitude practice we can do, and it's just 3 things that we're grateful for in the last 24 hours and why. And there's been over 11,000 pieces of research that shows that this helps with depression, anxiety, cardiovascular health, all sorts of different aspects of physical and emotional well-being. And it really takes just moments of your day, right? So the way I often do it with my clients is have them kind of do that, and then they can recall it at the end of the day. If you're on your own, you can either just recall it or journal it, however you want. If you have somebody else that you're in relationship with, you can bring them in and have them do that as well. And it's a nice way to share. And then each time we do it, if we just kind of savor as we notice, it could be just, you know, I saw a beautiful sunset this evening and that made me feel a sense of peace, right? So last 24 hours and why. So we get away from family, friends, blah, 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 right? Like we actually want to notice these things because what we look for, we will find. So kind of paying attention to that. And so we'd love for you just to take a moment in your chat and to put in something that you're grateful for right now and just share that. All right, we're getting healthy family having a job, grateful for the students I work with, being able to look out the window, right, to be employed, my children, my son visiting from New York City, and the fact that he hasn't gotten COVID. Right? Grateful for all my family is healthy and that I have a job, my husband, my dog, my job, meaningful work. I'm grateful for the ability to telecommute. Right? Many of us are happy with that. The fall weather, right? Getting a little bit cooler. Grateful for you caring for all of us, so thank you. My health and flexibility in the job, being employed in good health. Great. Grateful I have car insurance. They were in a car accident. My dog, our walks together, her unconditional love. Yeah, love the pups. Grateful for the coworkers, and willingness to adapt during COVID, laughter. No matter how bad the day has been, I'm grateful that I'm warm, cool, not hungry, and a dry place to sleep. Enjoying yesterday's sunset, very peaceful. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And thinking about, like, how does that feel when you kind of think about something that you're grateful for, right? Just even bringing it up. Again, our brain doesn't know the difference between us thinking about something and it actually happening, right? There's an 88% overlap. So if I'm playing the piano versus thinking about playing the piano, 88% overlap in what lights up in the brain. So just spending some time, right, each day away from maybe the news and the media and taking a little break at times and kind of filling your mind with these thoughts and ideas, because it will generate that just as if it was happening at that time, right? So that is one way that we can definitely have that impact, right? So the next one we're looking at is, so we have that way of kind of helping out a family or friend or coworker, community member directly. That's one great way to do it. And we can think about random or conscious acts of kindness with that. And in this time of COVID, right, it might be a little bit different, but still making sure that we're reaching out to people, especially people who maybe don't have other people that are in the household with them. who, you know, are maybe needing a little bit more, whether that's a Zoom reach out or whether that's their local safe social distancing, whatever makes you feel comfortable and them feel comfortable as well. But, you know, even leaving a little something, you know, some flowers or something, if you know somebody needs a boost or it's a birthday or something like that, like sending a card, but trying to kind of think about people that there's a lot of people that are having a tough time right now. Or the parents out there that are trying to balance work and home, like online schooling, all of those things, you know, just thinking about creative ways that you can, even just a text, letting them know that you're thinking about them, are different ways that we can kind of physically reach out. And then formal volunteering opportunities, again, that's a little more challenging now in the pandemic, but we'll also show some different resources so you can look at kind of what's available. The other way is looking at self-compassion. So we look at compassion out in terms of giving to others, but another way we can really be kind of using compassion is within. Right? So now might be a good time to really be showing yourself some self-compassion. And so the tenets of self-compassion are recognizing that, one, when we feel pain and suffering, we feel separated from others, right? It's just the way our brain is and how we're structured. So it's reminding us that pain and suffering is something that actually connects us with every other human being, right? And then we're kind of mindfully aware of that, acknowledging the pain and suffering, remembering that we're connected to others, and then we are talking to ourselves like we would a good friend, right? So as we're struggling, there's a lot of great opportunity to think about, what would I say to somebody who I cared about? Because oftentimes, if you're like most human beings, you have what we call a harsh inner critic, and that can get revved up, especially in more troubling times, right? So really just saying, you know, hey, this is a challenging time. I'm choosing to be kind to myself, or I'm sorry you're going through that. You can put hand on heart, right? Which is really almost like a self-hug, and it's a way of self-soothing. And we know, like, when we hug, oxytocin drops, and that's the cuddle hormone. So that's something positive, right? So those are a couple of very specific ways that we can kind of integrate altruism and kindness into our daily lives. So if you're like, oh, here's some different ones. Now I haven't COVID proofed this, but it goes to random acts of kindness and gives you just some thoughts. It could be like, instead of the bill at the restaurant, maybe it's the drive-through, but just some small things that you can do in terms of random acts of kindness. So wanting to think through and have you guys chat in again, is there any kind of random acts of kindness or conscious acts of kindness that you've been doing in this time of COVID, or finding different ways to connect or help others? We'd love to have you chat that in and share what are some things either that you've done, somebody's done for you, or you've noticed somebody else doing for somebody else. All right, so sharing garden veggies, nice, with neighbors and friends. Let's see. Excellent. Having socially distanced Fridays after 5 with neighbors, right? Being kind of outside and we can social distance, but still being connected to people. Calling to check in on neighbors. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Like, kind of maybe, you know, giving that call or text to say, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? Making phone calls to friends and shut-ins. Yeah, some people are, because of physical well-being, they're not able to kind of get out and about. And so, yeah, making sure that they know people are still thinking about them, caring for them. Listening, sharing chicken eggs, love it. Social distance, distance, more time with friends. Pay for the person's Starbucks in front of me in the drive-thru, love it. Appreciation gift cards for the children's teachers. My son is helping my mother by picking up groceries, cleaning her gutters, and doing other work around the house. Somebody else is sharing eggs too. They also are sharing eggs. Checking on elderly neighbors, calling to connect, dropping off meals while remaining socially distanced. Walking with the elderly mother in evenings, helping with her water gardens. Excellent. Love it. Love all these wonderful ways that making sure I recognize team members every day. Excellent. So if you're, either you're on the team or you're leading the team, making sure that you're letting people know you're thinking about them. Sympathy card. Yeah, it's hard now in terms of grieving losses too. If you have somebody grieving a loss, it's very different. We can't go to oftentimes a funeral and can't kind of go in and give the hug like we would normally do. So making sure we reach out in other ways to let people know we're thinking about them. Picking up food orders, reaching out to single friends, baking muffins. Love it. You guys are so great. So many wonderful ways. And again, just as you think about it, things you've done or things you've noticed other people doing, how good that feels, right? To just be able to kind of either be witness to do that. And really all we're doing is trying to share some positive energy, right? So we get to share it and then we get to receive it, right, from others. And then other people see that and they're motivated and they're inspired. And then it kind of spreads from there. This is the contagion we'd like to be spreading all over right now, right? So love the great ideas and all that you guys are already doing. So thank you for sharing. So we did want to kind of add this one in there and just reminding people it's so important to find other ways to stay connected because we are finding, again, pre-COVID, there were already issues with people feeling isolated and loneliness. And this has just been amplified by this. So kind of arranging a virtual hangout, get moving, right? We have the fitness challenge going on with Who's Wow right now. Take a virtual tour, right? Because sometimes we can't do the family vacation. Have a game night, kind of doing that virtually. Trivia, I've heard friends doing that. Adopting a pet, now might be that time to connect and get the pet you've been thinking about getting, or fostering a pet or things like that. So just encouraging you to make sure you're taking that time to connect. And these are just a couple of additional ideas just because it's such an important time to be thinking about that, making sure you're doing that for yourself. And so we're looking at more kind of concrete ways of how can we get involved, right? So we talked about kind of our mindset that we can use, the gratitude practice. We talked about self-compassion, random acts of kindness, conscious acts of kindness, formal volunteering. So here's some different ways to get involved. So we have the United Way Day of Caring, the CVC campaign. We'll have a little bit more on that in other slides. The Employee Volunteer Center, the Leave Benefit and United Way portal, and boards and committees. So we're going to take a look at those pieces.
Great, thanks, Mary. Can you go on mute? Thanks. We're getting a bit of an echo, so thank you so much, Mary, for giving so many great examples of how we can stay connected even during COVID-19. So I just wanted to mention you will get these slides afterwards. There's going to be some links in the upcoming slides. So you'll have a PDF of these slides in the email that will go out tomorrow. There'll also be a link to the recording of this webinar. So the Day of Caring was a bit different this year. It's usually later in September. It was technically last Wednesday. And you can see on this slide here the purposes of the Day of Caring. And I do want to credit Dawn Niles from UVA Health Community Relations for preparing some of these slides. She wasn't able to be with us this year for our presentation, but wanted to give kudos to her and credit to her for some of these slides. So just kind of a brief funny story of what happened this year when I participated in the Day of Caring last week, because I think it's relevant to some of the topics I mentioned earlier. So I had signed up to do gardening at an elementary school out towards Crozet. So I show up, I've got my gloves and actually brought my dog with me. And I go up and talk with the contact person, and she wasn't expecting anyone on that day because there was a miscommunication. She was expecting folks on Friday. So I was all set to have like a day of social connection. I was all excited to be meeting new people and maybe some others from UVA HR. So I had to kind of make a mental shift because here I was standing alone in front of a heavily overgrown garden. There were like 3 to 4 foot tall weeds all around. And I was like, how am I going to motivate myself to do this, without other people? I was feeling a little bit lonely. So then I thought about this kind of idea of meaning and purpose, and kind of shifted gears and just really connected to in that kind of vertical transcendence way, and that kind of propelled me through. Just a little anecdote there. I see we're getting close towards the hour, so I am going to go a little bit quickly here. The UVA Employee Volunteer Center. This is really a fabulous website. Kudos to my colleagues in HR for putting it together. It reflects not only a focus within the university, but also on our university's commitment to partnering with Charlottesville organizations, as well as the surrounding counties. There are a number of opportunities that are listed through this volunteer center. And the volunteer center, they direct employees who want to volunteer towards those needs that are especially critical or that are related to our long-term recovery from this pandemic. And there's also an emphasis on directing resources and volunteers towards the more vulnerable members of our community. And there's also guidelines of how we can stay safe while volunteering. And so there's many ways to get involved through this volunteer center. It could be donating supplies. It could be contributing your specific expertise to an area or to an organization that needs that skill set. So here's the link down at the bottom and the contact information for the UVA Employee Volunteer Center. Oh, very important last bullet there. I'll let you read.
All right. And just a reminder that you do have, if you're on the academic side, 16 hours of paid public service leave. And for the medical center, you have 8 hours of paid public service leave, right? So they really want to encourage you to take that time and be involved in the community. And then you can also track how you volunteer in Workday. And I won't go over all of this, but just to let you know that that is available to you. And here's the process for that. And sometimes, again, right now with the pandemic, or just in general, that's another way that people like to give is through the CDC campaign. And at UVA, for employees, they have the opportunity each year to participate in that and to give to organizations, and that can be taken out of your paycheck. So that can be just a little bit from each one goes a long way in helping these communities. And you can know each paycheck that you are making an impact as well. And then just some more other information. So the United Way, that's a link to their portal. The Center for Nonprofit Excellence, right? Another way with your skills and your experience maybe is to become a board member too, is another way to help a community. So join a local nonprofit board or coalition or committee. And so definitely take advantage of all of those pieces. And then there's some contact information at the bottom too. So before we tie up, we'd just love to hear, you guys talked a little bit about that, if there's any other kind of volunteering that you're doing now for yourself or others, or what you're hearing about others doing, and what you'd like to get involved with. We'd love to hear that from you before we kind of wrap up. So if you want to take a moment to just chat in, and really, we love for people when they've come to one of these, it's just what's something you're kind of committing to doing, whether it's, having an altruistic mindset, whether it's like looking into some of these opportunities, whether it's something that you're already involved in, that you're going to continue doing. Yeah, so somebody's in the Scouts and is a USA Committee Chair. Love it. Volunteer with local club, Scout Pack, the Friends in Schools Helping, volunteering through Java, virtual this year. Again, right, we can still do it through kind of those virtual things. Volunteering childcare for family members who are working from home. That's so wonderful. Donating blood, platelets, and plasma regularly. Loaves and fishes at the food bank. I know you hear the radio ads for the loaves for the food bank about how they have opportunities, socially distanced, all those things. Reading programs at the public schools. Donating blood. Again, we can be really getting back into journaling and daily gratitude list. Excellent. Doing phone banks for upcoming elections. So again, yeah, so I love finding all sorts of great ways to kind of give back. But just making sure that you're thinking about, one, taking really good care of yourself with that self-compassion and self-care, and making sure you're connected, looking for space of purpose and meaning in your life, ways that you can get involved in the community that feels safe and good for you to do. And so eating healthy, sharing PPE. Yeah, my neighbor had made us some masks, and we were so appreciative of that. Volunteer as a poll worker on election day. Yeah, awesome. So we are so thankful for you being with us today, and want to have an opportunity, if there's any other kind of comments or questions that you have on anything that we shared, that you can definitely go ahead and